Welcome to the Dirty Verdict Podcast, where your hosts, trial lawyers Kyle Herbert and Bill Ogden, and mediator Peter Taaffe talk with interesting lawyers and break down recent legal news in detail. Here's Kyle,
All right,
Bill,
welcome
and
back
Peter.
to another edition of the Dirty Verdict Podcast. I am mediator Peter Taaffe.
I am lawyer extraordinaire Kyle Herbert. As always, here with our good friend Bill.
Hello. Bill does not like to introduce himself, so I'll introduce him. Bill Ogden with the law firm of Fair and Ball.
And a special guest joining us today, Benny Agosto from Abraham Watkins. Benny, really honored to have you. Appreciate you coming in. Did you have a good Memorial Day?
Yes, thanks for having me. It was great, and got to relax a little bit with the family.
Fantastic.
So Benny is, I think, our first guest that we've had that is in a Hall of Fame.
That is true. That is true.
About that, Benny.
The Puerto Rico Soccer Hall of Fame.
Oh, excellent.
It was 1979 Pan American Games that I was started in the national team.
Wow.
It was a junior national team, but I actually was training with that big national team. And since then, I was on the national team, then came to Houston to play soccer and played club team down there.
Wow.
So all of that combined, plus the fact that I'm old, they honored me with that. And so it was really exciting.
That's fantastic. When did you get that award?
It was officially given to me in 2020, December of 2020. And because of COVID, nothing happened until just recently. We had the ceremony. And I was in trial in Mississippi, actually, when it happened. And so my roommate and partner in crime in the soccer team brought me back my medal and my garb for the Hall of Fame.
Did you play college soccer?
I played college soccer. I came to Houston and played at Houston Baptist University, where I played Division I soccer for 4 years.
Wow. You are by far the most athletic guest I think we've ever had.
I mean, we're going to have an obstacle course after this.
Yep.
To make sure. So
I can do a lot of things, just a lot slower these days.
Well, we're going to do a shuttle run and maybe some tackling drills, but we'll get to that
After the liability waivers.
after the liability waivers are completely signed off on. How did you decide to go to law school from HBU?
Yep. I went to HBU, went to U of H for graduate school in microbiology. I thought I was going to be a teacher, professor, scientist, something up down that alley. And after teaching for 6 years, knew that I had to go back to school and get a doctor's degree somewhere. And then one of my college roommates, who y'all know is Randy Sorrells, my former law partner, I knew he was doing pretty good in law. So as former roommate, I said, darn it, if he can do it, I can do it. And I decided to get into law school. And it gave me the chance to get my doctor's degree, never thinking I was going to be a trial lawyer, but understanding that, as a doctor in jurisprudence, you can teach or you can have options. So I really got into it as an opportunity to keep on getting an education, but then realized very quickly my sports background and the trial opportunity kind of made sense. Get ready for trial and get ready for that competition.
So what specifically drew you to trial law other than kind of a sense of competition?
Well, I did go to South Texas College of Law, which gave me many opportunities to learn about trial law and mock trials and get prepared for that, as the law school does a great job. But also I saw the Spanish side, my background as a bilingual lawyer to be, and I saw that I was clerking at Abraham Watkins in 1991, and not a single person in the building spoke Spanish. Not a secretary, not a lawyer, no one. And when I got hired, I was the first non-white male in the great history of the law firm and the first Spanish-speaking person. So I realized personal injury law plus Spanish gives you an opportunity to get clients and to represent those people that are working hard.
Yeah, it turns out there's a huge market for that.
And there is. And I have a slide that I make sure my lawyers at the firm understand, is that almost 50% of the Texas population is Hispanic. How many of those are your clients? And so if we're not working hard to gather those folks as our clients, then we're missing out on that large group.
Did you go straight from Abraham Watkins to more Abraham Watkins? Were there any stops in between your internship in your job?
There was, and I was lucky to work for Willie Collins, who's now a more senior lawyer, but when he was younger, 30 years ago, I worked for him. I did a 1-year defense work. The firm was called Collins and Rader. He had come from V&E and had his own boutique firm. So I did 1 year of that. I had interned for Alice Parrott at the Court of Appeals, and she's the one that said, go work for Willie. He's going to give you real work experience.
She's one of my favorite mediators.
Well, she's one of my favorite people.
She does a fine job.
And after I worked for Willie for a year, she called me up and said, hey, how's it going at the firm? Oh, it's going good. I was ready to tell her a story. She said, I quit the bench. Come work for me. And so she took me to Burr and Parrott, where she went back to that firm. She had been a partner at that firm. And so I worked for Burr and Parrott for 2 years. And that's really when I started trying cases. I tried my first death case there and started trying cases all over the state. And then eventually when I realized that she and David were slowing down, I said, I need to land somewhere with a future. And Abraham Watkins was the future.
Is Willie Collins a musician?
That's him.
Okay, I've had a case with him. He was a nice guy. We solved it, and I was young and went in way too hot, and I was ready to burn down the house, and I didn't need to, and he kind of humbled me. One of the 2 defense lawyers that's humbled me in my career. So,
well, Willie is, Irish, New Yorkan, tall, crazy man.
he
And
definitely didn't put up with my shit. So.
yeah, and I appreciated him a lot. Gave me a lot of opportunities. I went to trial a couple of times carrying their bags, which is cool for a younger beginner lawyer. And then he blessed the move when I went back to Alice. So
Nice.
So what kind of stuff did you start? How did you make your way back to? So what kind of stuff did you start doing once you got to Abraham Watkins?
Well, I have a very interesting story that I tell all the lawyers at the firm no one will ever beat. This is a true story. Since I had clerked there, I'm moving in Friday before I start Monday. As a very diligent person, I'm walking with my little box of personal items, and I'm going to move in Friday afternoon over the weekend to be ready for Monday. As I'm doing that, my former law partner, David Matthews, is walking out to lunch as I'm walking in. So he sees me. Hey, what are you doing here? Well, I start Monday. Oh, okay. Come back to my office. And he literally gives me a file to pick a jury on my very first day on the job. So my very first day at Abraham Watkins, I was picking a jury and actually picked a jury in Harris County, car wreck type thing. The plaintiff, the
2. This is a test of the file. Testing 1, 2.
I mean, what are
didn't
the
we say
chances?
fire alarm was going to go off?
Literally, what are the chances?
Is it going to go off?
I mean, I have no idea. I've been in this building for 11 years, and this has happened
Pay your rent.
like 4 times, and 2 of them in the last month.
Leave this in. We're not.
I think it's Abraham Watkins' lawyer.
Maybe it is.
Someone likes you in building management.
That is so bizarre. Oh, I apologize.
No, it's okay.
Look, I will not accept.
Yeah, we'll keep going. If we have to stop, we'll stop.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I picked a jury first day on the job, and it was great.
How'd it go?
And I won.
Fantastic.
Was it like a, hey, get this file off my desk, give it to the young kid, or was it like a test to see what you had?
I think it was a little test because it was against a Fulbright lawyer, an experienced person. She was about a 2-year lawyer, so she didn't have tons of experience. Time Warner was a defendant, truck driver that rear-ended my car. My clients were undocumented. So it was a perfect storm for me because, as you know, we know now the rest of the story, that became an area that I really focused on in my practice. But at the time, I couldn't believe the judge said, if you're going to ask for lost wages, then they get to tell the jury she's undocumented. So I dropped that. The doctor never showed up. The plaintiff's doctor never showed up. While we're waiting, I saw Dr. Martin Steiner sitting in the hallway to testify in our case. I had read the depo, and I knew that he proved up at least $6,000 per plaintiff versus the 20 something that the plaintiff wanted in the doctor's report. So I told the inexperienced lawyer, hey, I see your doctor's out there. You want to call him out of order? Well, we wait for my doctor, and that allowed me to prove up at least some of the meds.
Sure.
And so I got a $20-something thousand verdict for my first trial at Abraham Watkins on my via the defense expert on my very first day on the job. So I tell everybody, you've been here more than a day. I got you beat.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And then what's the rest of the story? Tell me, I mean, you've been there now 20,
Yeah.
Names on the wall.
Yeah, a lot of years and a lot of names have come and gone. I did enjoy working with all the older lawyers that are not there anymore, but I tried a lot of cases with Dale Friend, who was a Rice grad, UT grad, super smart engineer type guy. And I learned a lot from him, given my science background. We worked very closely together. And because my goal was to be a trial lawyer, there was no, the fear kicks in, right? But, when you've been competing all over the country or sometimes other parts of the world in something that makes you nervous, but you have to trust your skills, you just get ready and do it. So same thing for trial work. A lot of people have the ability to be trial lawyers, but they're afraid or they're fear of the unknown, being unprepared. You just have to not be afraid and do it. So I was that person, and I've been trying cases, and my goal was to be board certified by the time I hit the 5-year mark. I did. As soon as I hit 5 years, I had my cases. I took the test and passed, personal injury trial law. And then after that, just be active in the community, not just, being successful and making money. That.
Damn it, Kyle.
This building hates you, Benny. It's not me.
It said I didn't want salmon.
Well, it's okay.
If you're a trial lawyer, you got to learn how to improvise.
Punches, baby.
How many times these days with Zoom goes ape shit and you just have to deal with it? So I tell everybody, look, we've been through it all. It's okay. Just keep on going.
I had a really contentious discovery fight in front of, who's the federal judge? Wears the fancy British collars?
Sim Lake?
No, it doesn't really matter. So the defense, there's two defense lawyers. One is she's been on the job 3 months, and the partner handling the file who's been sending these emails that are just, he's way too aggressive for this case. And he's sending all these hateful emails. He gets on the Zoom call, and after about 2 minutes, he just drops off. And I thought there might have been a technical problem. So we go forward, we win everything we want. Judge doesn't want to sign an order, makes a little minute note. And then 30 days later, we still haven't gotten what we wanted. So I set up for another hearing. And we go in front of the judge, and this time it's just the partner, not the associate. And he mentions, as we're in the waiting room, well, I didn't have time for this nonsense last time, so I just dropped off. Like, in my mind, I had assumed it was a technical problem. Maybe he was listening in. And so we get into this fight about what the last decision was. And I go, Judge, this guy didn't even attend the last hearing. He dropped off on purpose. And the judge was like, great, I don't want to hear from you anymore. Don't say anything else. It's like, there you go. Sometimes the technical difficulties work in your favor. So we can push forward a little bit, or I can go downstairs and try and find whoever is manning the microphone and beat them to death.
No, we can pick back up.
Okay.
So you did mention that, and I get it still, but do you still get that nervousness right before you pick a jury or start an opening? Do you still get that excitement?
I call it butterflies.
Yeah.
You get a little butterflies in your stomach, but the secret to trial work, and I'm speaking, preaching to the choir here, is to be prepared. If you have everything prepared, the nervousness level goes way down.
Right.
You're just anxious maybe to get started. But once the jury walks in and I start with my song and dance, as we call it, I get into that comfort zone. And, I hadn't tried a case in a couple of years because of COVID. My last trial was January of 2020 in Beaumont. It was a chemical plant case too. So then fast forward a couple of years, I'm trying another one in Harris County. I felt a little butterfly to start, but once I got going, there was no sweat, there was no nervousness. Everything was ready. We were prepared, and we had a good case and good clients. So at that point, you go in very comfortable. And once you feel you've done it enough times, the comfort level is high, and it's just talking to people.
So we talked about your verdict in the Exxon case when it came out, and I watched a lot of it online. And so I saw how much you let Jonathan, and I was like, wow, this is a big stage. And I mean, Jonathan spoke more than probably anybody. And so does that make you nervous putting a case like that? Or do you just have that trust by them in your team?
I mean, you have to trust your teammates. You know, if you pass the ball to somebody and you fear they're going to drop it every time, then you won't pass it. You got to give it to them and you got to trust them. Jonathan worked real hard during the litigation, you know, discovery part of the case. And, you know, as a teammate, you can give advice, you know, move on, slow down, follow up. All those things are part of the teamwork. Right. But if you trust him and you know he knows the material very well, and Jonathan did and does know that case very well, then you got to let him go. And of course, we strategically planned. I picked the jury, he does opening, I do closing, or we did closing together. And then we picked our witnesses strategically as well. So given that, you know, framework, then you can be very comfortable in trial.
No, I thought I was impressed with John. That I was like, man, because one of the witnesses, I forget, it was an Exxon employee or corporate rep, started getting shitty with him. And I mean, he kind of drew a hard line in the sand pretty aggressively, but he did it in a way where he wasn't the bad guy. And I was like, oh, all right, Jonathan, like, got a little something there.
And I think that works. We did the same thing. Lena, Lorenzo, and I did the same thing in Mississippi, where we strategize how we put on the witnesses and we break it up so it's not just one person all the time. I think the juries appreciate that. And then we combine closing so people hear from both lawyers. So I think there's a good mix to doing that. But you got to trust, you know, your partner, your associate.
So if we back up, when you get to Abraham Watkins, get your feet under you, was there a specific person you worked with predominantly, or was it just kind of different cases, different people?
The firm is different now than it used to be. When I started, I was the 8th lawyer. Now we have almost 30 lawyers, including contract lawyers. So it's a different dynamic. But back then, we were assigned to, you know, whatever case you had with the lawyer or partner that was giving you the case. But as it turned out, because I had the Spanish side of things, I was bringing in more business than getting. So most of the cases I was working were mine through my referring attorney or contacts. So then they assigned Dale Friend, the partner, said, why don't you, as a senior partner, why don't you work with Benny? Make sure he's not screwing up too much. And so that allowed me the blessing of working with him and trying cases. And we tried a lot of cases together. And so that gave me that opportunity. I did try a case with Randy. I did try a case with Nick Nichols, Randy Sorrells previously mentioned. I tried a case with almost everybody at the firm, really. Daniel Horowitz and I had a great win when he was coming up. So I think that's a good thing to work together in partners. And it's, you know, it makes the work a little easier as you prepare for trial, but also gives the two different people. And the jury appreciates that.
So was your goal to have your name on that wall, or were you thinking at some point I'm going to start my own shop, or how did that kind of play out?
Yeah, I think it was, you know, everybody has to make that decision as you go through your career, because I saw that God was blessing me with connections and clients because of my background and Spanish experience. I knew that I was able to run my own shop. You know, if I just had to figure out how to have staying power, how to stay there and get trials under my belt. So at some point I realized I'm not going anywhere. This is going to be my firm. Right. And of course, in a partnership, in a team effort. But as David Matthews, who was at our firm, left to do mass torts and different moves happened, older lawyers retiring, Dale retired and moved to, you know, Nevada. I saw myself as the person that's going to slip into that spot and fill the gaps. And so once I got to that point and I was doing, you know, leadership roles across the country and bar leadership, I'm a bar junkie.
Me too. What kind of
different bars?
Yeah. Well, I used to drink a lot more than I do now. I'm getting older.
I was just saying X.
Yeah. So I thought, this is the firm I need to be at. So I just kept on working my way through it from different angles. And once, you know, as all of us trial lawyers, if you realize that you need to be a multitasker, you can be the best trial lawyer, but if all you do is trying cases, eventually you're not getting anything. You got to go get business. You got to try them. You got to work the business inside the firm. And then the community is very important. If you're not working somehow in the community, whether it's, leadership and through bar activity or, charity work or just helping your neighbor, if you're not doing any in all of those things, then I think there's a ceiling. And the only way to break through that is to do more.
What is the smallest amount of time you've given an associate notice of a trial setting?
It wasn't a weekend.
Wasn't a weekend,
No.
right?
We're fair. We say, look, this case set, 2 or 3 months from now, you're on the team, get ready. And I think that's fair enough. I do say David Matthews was testing me, and he did give it to me on Friday for Monday. It was just a car wreck.
Day one. I mean, you were negative day 3 when you got there.
Yeah, I was. Exactly. I should have waited till Monday. Maybe I would have lucked out. But it was a great experience. Nobody expected me to win.
Sure.
And I went out there.
It's the free swings.
Exactly.
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. So it turned out great. And it just gave me the confidence. When you are a trial lawyer or anything you do as a lawyer, whether it's a hearing or signing up a case or whatever, taking a good depo, the more you do it and you're prepared, the more the confidence level builds. And so a lot of lawyers are afraid. The younger lawyers, they're afraid to do stuff. And we tell them, just get ready to do it and go do it.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. I mean, if you really flop, then we'll correct you. But if you're prepared, chances are you're not going to completely flop.
So I've known a bunch of great lawyers that have worked at Abraham Watkins and moved on. And I've known a bunch that have worked at Abraham Watkins and have still been there a long time. As kind of a multitasker manager of talent, do you have a philosophy about, what kind of folks you're looking for when it's somebody you feel like is on a partner track? Because it is a rogues gallery of excellent attorneys that used to work there. And I'm sure that you take great pride in their success. And do you ever want, man, I wish I had that guy back on my bench? Or tell me about your philosophy of attracting talent and keeping talent when you want to keep it.
Well, the firm is 72 years old, okay? The oldest plaintiffs firm in Texas and in Houston. John Hill founded it along with Kronzer, Abraham, and Brown. So those were great lawyers of their own time. But you see how they all moved on to do other things, whether they were judges or other areas. And Abraham stayed, and then Watkins joined them, and that's the name we keep today. When we look at lawyers that have gone through the firm, we mentioned some earlier, we were talking about Ernie Cannon and, of course, John O'Quinn and others that were great lawyers at the firm, came in as aggressive young lawyers, but they realized, I need to go do my own thing. So what has happened through these last few decades is that we have, as partners, we have said to our associates, you're part of this firm. So if an associate brings in a case, we give them a cut, a heavy cut. We want to encourage them. I don't want them sending it to my competitor or my neighbor because we're not giving them a cut.
Right.
So I want them to keep it, work it, and get a bigger cut. So we make them our in-house referring attorney. You go out and get a direct case,
Sure.
You should benefit. If you bring it from, Peter sends a case over and I need to share with Peter, then maybe the cut is less. But we want to promote the work in-house so they can bring the business. So I think now when we look at folks, we want first a hardworking lawyer. She can't just be sitting around, or he can't be just sitting around. They have to go work hard and work the cases we give them. But then we open the doors and say, you can market as much as you want. You can bring in folks for lunch or dinner, and let's get them to share with you their business with you. But if you're not working hard and you're not going to trial and you're not, like we talked a little bit, doing social media or marketing, then heck, nobody knows. They know you're working. They don't have a clue what all you're doing. So we do want to encourage people that have good work ethic and then the smarts of bringing business in. At this point, because the firm has evolved and since I've taken it over as a manager, I do want to have junior partners, which really in the past has never happened. Non-equity partners. There's no reason why we can't make folks who have been there for a while successfully just move them up. And then as plaintiff lawyers go, if you want to be a full partner, then you got to bring money in.
Yeah.
There's no science to that. You just bring it in, we share, accordingly. because we are plaintiff versus defense lawyers. But making them non-equity partners and giving them certain benefits and privileges so they can go out and get even more business when they're busy trying cases, I think it promotes that person. So we're really looking to do that.
Yeah, I think when you give someone the partner title, whether there's equity involved or voting rights or whatever it is, like being a partner at a firm, especially, one with y'all's name, it does help get those bigger cases in, and it makes it easier to market. But you said something a second ago that reminded me, because you said you were the first, diversity hire, I guess we call it.
Right.
And then when you said, when I'm looking for a hardworking lawyer, she can't just sit around, and you went she first, and y'all are probably the most diverse firm as far as women, minorities, across the board. Is that something that y'all purposely do, or you just happen to fall into it?
No, I think if you're not concerned about diversity, then you get comfortable with what you're used to. And, when I started, it was no diversity. So you're comfortable in whatever setting you're in. If you start, and no women, there was never a woman hired at our firm forever. Okay? Now we have half of the firm are women lawyers, and they're all great lawyers, and they'll, beat you up if you give them, if you're not watching.
Yeah, we got to talk to Angelina a couple weeks ago. So we
she's excellent. And that's exactly a good example of what we want in a trial lawyer. But if we don't give them the opportunity and we don't promote them, then they'll go somewhere else, or they'll get tired of, beating their heads against the wall. So we need to be cognizant of that and have lanes for them to jump into. Again, everybody wants to be partner. We get it. With years of experience and success, that will come. You want to be an equity partner at a plaintiff's firm, which is a lot harder to do the numbers because you have to bring money in, then there's going to be ways for us to do it, still allowing lawyers to be as successful as they can. But it is a concerted effort, and we do want diversity in all ways.
So 4 or 5 years ago, from my perspective, your firm just blew up as far as docket size, number of giant cases, verdicts coming out. Did something happen that y'all did that, or had y'all always been that way? Y'all just decided to kind of start promoting it?
Well, I call it the Mo factor.
Okay.
My law partner, Mo Aziz, is just an incredible lawyer. And now that he has a child, he works a little less than he used to.
Which is still unhealthy.
Which is still
unhealthy.
Crazy unhealthy amount of hours. But you got to love somebody who has that kind of dedication. It really put a fire under our bellies. I mean, I think I've always been a hard worker, and my business, practice speaks for itself because I have a wide range of networks that bring me business opportunities. And plus I thank God for the opportunities. But Mo really kicked it up a notch. And when he is going all over the country bringing business in, even as partners, it kind of gets us excited. And then you want to do more and more. And so when we collaborate and we talk about cases, we want to do them together. And Mo and I worked on the Curari case, which was a very large settlement and large litigation.
What are y'all even working for still after some of the numbers I heard? Jeez.
It was pretty big numbers. And so, but, you got to think of the future, which is the firm continuing. I have Ben Agosto III. My son is now on my team as a 5-year lawyer. John, my newest lawyer, he's my son. I want them to have something. They got to have to earn it.
Right.
I guarantee you, I've told them that. But not just them, all the younger lawyers. And because you were mentioning earlier that some of the older lawyers leave to start their own firm or leave to go with another group, I think our style now and our management approach is to keep the good lawyers. Let's make it so they don't leave. David Matthews, who I'm talking about a little earlier, I had lunch with him recently, and he was like, I wonder what would have happened had I stayed. He's an excellent lawyer, an incredible lawyer. But, he moved on, and now thinking, he could still be here. So those are the fun thoughts, and we want to keep as many of the good lawyers as we can.
Let me jump in, switching gears a little bit on kind of how you approach cases. Pretty much anyone in town who has interacted with you only has great things to say about you on the plaintiff or defense side. And we've touched on this on some prior episodes about kind of younger lawyers who want to be aggressive, and so they don't know the distinction on what things to fight over and which things to not fight over. And so how do you, as someone who's been in practice for a long time and may have taken that art a little bit, and then now who mentors, not lawyers just only in your own firm, but outside of your firm, how do you educate, train, counsel younger lawyers on how to approach a case and their opposing counsel?
Yeah, that's something that we have to pretty much on a daily basis deal with, because it's not just whether I'm having a good day or a bad day, how I feel, but it's my opponent or sometimes my co-counsel or sometimes my associates. Everybody has good and bad days. Everybody has different attitudes. And so I've always taken the approach that if you know the rules of evidence and knows the rules of procedure better than anybody or as well as the next person, then you're going to beat them almost every time. And so I take the approach of knowing the rules. Whenever somebody gets nasty with me, I know the rules. I'm going to find a way within the rules to beat them down and not have to get too excited. However, you have to pick your battles. And that's what I tell the young lawyers. Pick your battles. Don't go and knock somebody's head off on first swing, because A, you're going to see them for the rest of the litigation. B, you're going to see them for many more years if you want to be successful in town. There is a time and a place to whoop up on somebody. And I say that semi-loosely, but there's times to do that. In a good deposition, before trial, that's a good time to do that, or during trial. But every time you go to the deposition, your goal shouldn't be, I'm going to kill the other side. I want to get my rules and my evidence in place so that I can win that case. And so, young lawyers don't realize that pulling the jury charge when you start is the key. I just tried that case in Mississippi. Heck, there's no way I could do it without looking at the pattern jury charge or their rules of procedure. So you got to study that first. Then you go after them, knowing the rules and knowing evidence. And I always say, look, not even the judge is going to know more than me. They may know the same as me because there's only one case to read or one set of rules to read. So if I know them, the judge knows as much as I do. But nobody should know more than me. And that is how I feel that you can beat the other side without having to raise your voice. There's times to do it, and then you have to pick your battles.
It's funny because you asked that, because Benny and I've been working on the ITC case together for 4 years-ish, and I call him the mayor because both sides, Benny's shaking hands, everybody, and I've been confrontational with the other side, and they'll go to Benny for like that diplomacy, but then I saw Benny the first time he flipped that switch in a depot when somebody's getting shitty with him, and I was like, oh, there was like a tone change, and it's definitely there, and I didn't know he even had it until it happened. Then I was like, oh, so this is all, okay, this is how it works. And so it was interesting that you asked that, because I've seen it firsthand over the last few years.
And it's like game time, okay? I think my sports analogy and my life experience comes into it, because when it's game time, it's game time. And, if I'm taking a really important depot, I walk in, straight face, my box of documents or whoever's helping me walk in, and I'm not too cordial at that point. And then I get on with the business at hand. And then, of course, after depo's over, I can slap you in the back and say, hey, have a great day. But you got to be able to discern the difference, because if you're mean all the time, that's fine, but there's times you shouldn't be. If you're too friendly all the time, again, people see it as a weakness. So you got to have that mixture and know when it's game time. And, I think you don't learn that overnight. I think you use your personality and the experience you gain from others and some mentors, and you build that. But at some point, the sooner the younger lawyer learns that, the better.
It's worked for, I learned the hardest way, which was being an asshole, then making a mistake and having to go ask that person for the favor. And so I wish I would have learned it quicker. We should have recorded this a little bit sooner.
But that happens. And even when you get with a judge, I remember a case, I was hired 2 months before trial, had hearings, pretrial hearings, and I'm really cocky. It was about 20 years ago. So I go in there, still cocky at the time, and I win 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and then I just wanted 0.4. And the judge looked at me and said, I'm going to reconsider all the rulings I just made. And then we walked out, kicked us out. And the referring attorney said, what the hell just happened? I said, calm down. I was showing off too much. I know this guy, he's going to give me a fair shake. So I apologized to the judge. Judge, in my zeal to be a great lawyer, if I went overboard, I'm sorry. So just forgive me. And then I tried the case and busted the $1 million policy, and we settled immediately afterwards. So that's when $1 million used to be a lot of money.
Yeah,
Still is.
Still is.
To some of us.
that's funny.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think I've heard you talk about this before. Your background as an educator and your desire to go into that, coupled with the fact that you have a wide area of practice. You'll have a case involving a refinery explosion, and then this last one in Mississippi was a products liability case. So how do you take some of your aptitude and interest in teaching, coupled with your educational background, and how you approach juries when you're explaining some complicated set of facts?
I think the fact that I was a scientist first and then taught, I put those two things together. When you're a trial lawyer, of course, you have to be a teacher too. You have to speak in terms and using the right words so that the jury understands you, even if it's a complicated issue. I remember you and I, Bill and I, talking about before Exxon started. He said, man, keep it simple. And because it is complicated, hydrocarbons and the whole thing, engineering. So you got to have knowledge enough, understand the science in some of these cases, whether it's product liability or petrochemical industry, to understand how to put it in simple terms, and then be a teacher and talk to folks. And the juries, the juries are smarter than we think. They can hear it once or twice. They don't want to hear it a third time. They get it. Even though, we're trained to say everything 3 times, but they get it. And you want to talk to them in a way that you see them nodding their heads, they're getting it. And, now with years of experience, I look at the jury a lot more than I used to. In the old days, I was more focused on the witness and my documents and a little more scared, didn't want to look. Now I'm literally talking to them, looking them straight in the eye. And if they're not getting it, they're giving me that shadowy look, then I have to adjust. And so I think the teaching and the background allows me to talk to the jury in ways that becomes common folk talk. And if you talk to them that way, you don't talk down to them, then they're receptive. Of course, you have to have a good case. I learned, how to get a $1 million verdict?
Find $1 million case with a...
Exactly. You got to get $1 million case. So it's okay. You have a good case, then you can swing for the fence.
I always tell people that I'm like, the hardest part about our job is getting the case.
Yeah.
Everything else is not as hard as that. But and then you realize after your first 6 months or a year as a plaintiff's lawyer, how rare a $10 million case is. It's not. You think that they're just sprinkling them out all over the place. They're not. And if they are, lawyers like Benny are taking them from us still and not letting the young guys.
It sounds like it's Mo. It sounds like we need. We need to kneecap Mo.
That's what I'm getting out of this. Is Mo's the one that's hogging all this.
I was given a closing recently, and the defense in their rebuttal to my closing just said some of the most ridiculous stuff you'd ever heard. Just off the wall, and I had my bullet points lined out about how I was just going to stand up and stomp, just destroy them. I was all red in the face and angry. And my co-counsel, as I was about to stand up, elbowed me, and he pointed to these two. One was kind of a middle-aged lady who was a teacher, who I thought might be the foreman, who was sitting next to a younger lady. And he pointed to them, and I looked up, and these two women, ladies were holding back laughs at how ridiculous the defense had been. And so I stood up, kind of took an evaluation of what the jury's mood was, and they were so tired of hearing us pound the table over this car wreck. And I just stood up and said, these folks get one chance to come in and talk to you. And they just came up with, I got to tell you, this is comedy hour. This is absolutely ridiculous. And as I said that, the two ladies in the front, they both audibly began to laugh out loud. And at that point, I got real calm and made just a handful of points as the other lawyer got completely red-faced and frustrated. But you're right. Most of the time, juries get it. And you can really gauge how you're doing sometimes by just taking a beat and seeing what the jury's sending back to you.
Yeah, you got to watch them. And I've had a few trials where the judges have allowed the jury to send questions, which is unusual, but judges do it, and they're allowed to do it. And it gives you immediate feedback. I'm missing this point, or they're missing the point. I need to get it right. And so it's interesting when you're asking the question.
I would never agree to let.
Oh yeah,
They love it too because it gives both sides a preview to where because we think we're making all these big points, but we don't know that on day one they latched onto some random fact that didn't matter. And so Judge Gamble in the Alex Jones case, after every witness let the jury ask questions, and some of those questions were hilarious.
Some of those questions were amazing.
Yeah.
well, you can still object, and the judge
Sure.
can say no.
Right.
But if a good question gets through, it does allow you the opportunity to fill in the blanks, to fill in the gaps. And when you're answering the question, you're looking at the jury like, yeah, thumbs up, I got you, and here's the answer to the question, which then they latch onto your story better.
Right.
So I do like it.
I love that approach. That was the first time I'd done it. They do it a bunch in Pennsylvania, and some of my partners do a lot of work in Philly. And so they were used to it. And I was like, wait, what? They're going to just ask questions to the witness. The judge reads the question to the witness. The witness answers it to the jury, but the jury goes back, writes their questions down, gives them to the judge, and then the judge goes through before the jury comes back, asks, are there any objections here, there? And if either side really objected at all, the judge would just throw it out. But for the most part, we were like, all right, yeah, we don't want to keep anything from them. So I really liked that. I hope that's something that starts growing, at least here.
Are you aware of any Houston judges that do that? I know Austin has quite a few.
We've done it in Houston, not recently. Of course, it's not like I'm going to trial every day in Houston, but the times I recall having done it included Texas, included Houston.
Yeah. I think things are so backed up. That's one thing is it delays or it prolongs the trial, right, when you do it that way.
Yeah, it usually tacks on probably 15 minutes to get the jury back there, let them use the bathroom, let them write their questions out, bring them out, and then judge has to read them to us, bring the jury back in and read them again. But I from a efficiency standpoint, I think it goes both ways, because if you know where they're kind of at, you can skip a lot of stuff that you thought you needed to cover. So it was very insightful. I liked it a lot.
Good. Okay, swinging around to another point you've touched on, and that is developing business, getting business, particularly for young lawyers. I went to a CLE presentation that you and your partner, Lena Lorenzo, did on social media for young lawyers. But then that's a relatively new phenomenon. You came up in a time when it was joining organizations, being active in charitable stuff. So what kinds of things would you advise a lawyer, in 2023? What would you recommend to them as far as starting to build? I mean, the outcome of what you've kind of gardened for many years has come to fruition for a while. But what would you do now to start that process?
And we tell our lawyers this every month when we meet with them. They have to be part of organizations as well. So it starts being, you have to be part of a community, whether it's your church community, your neighborhood community, the softball league or baseball league, some community where people actually see you and know what you do. My son Ben does paintball. So he does paintballing with a bunch of guys from all over the place. Well, he's gotten some business just from that because they know he's a trial lawyer. We sponsor his jersey or something. We're active. But then not just being part of a group like the Houston Bar or the Houston Trial Lawyers, you have to then use these skills, these marketing skills and social media skills that not everybody knows how to. I was slow learning it. But once you learn it and you can be out there in the community, you got to use it. And it starts from a simple Facebook page or LinkedIn page, and then being on it every other day. We make people do it almost every day. We encourage people to do it almost every day.
Are you on the TikToks, Benny?
I have done TikTok and, 27-second video. And when we first did it, it had thousands of likes or, watches, because people are interested in this kind of, marketing. Of course, we're not going to do, we try not to be too yellow journalism or too crazy in our announcements. We try to be an average type person because we want to attract the average Jane or the average Joe. But if you're not telling them that we're doing airplane cases, or we're not telling them that we're doing helicopter or maritime or trucking or whatever it is you want to do, if you're not out there saying it, people won't call you on it. So I think we encourage folks to talk about the business they're doing, the cases they're working, if they're in mediation or trial or hearings, whatever it is. It's easy to talk about what you're doing every day. So we encourage, talk about your personal life, mix it in with your business life, what you're doing. And then we have the mass firm appeal, which is done through the marketing department. And that's another level.
So I've seen Mo a lot in his car, on a plane, on a boat. Are there any modes of transportation you avoid when it comes to mass marketing?
I try to stay away from bicycles because I don't want to get hurt. I need an engine. A golf cart is pretty cool, except
I broke broke my back in 2 spots on a golf cart.
Well, I was going to say you got to have seat belts. I'm quite familiar with golf cart litigation. You have to be safe on a golf cart.
I'll hire you next time.
So
how about helicopters?
Helicopters, I love working them. Currently have a couple of Bell helicopter cases, but I will not ride in one.
I think that was a 4-0 vote in this room.
Yeah,
against riding in helicopters.
It's not as it's not as comfortable as you would think.
Oh, you're
moving one way, you're looking another way, and you're going up and down at the same time, and everybody looks calm, but nobody is.
Kyle wants to find another activity in which he can break some bones, or even better, and so he's on record as being okay with it.
I just want to see the dirty verdict, coming in low, maybe over the Harris County Courthouse, zip lining down. Just ideas here.
Hey, let me tell you,
for the marketing budget. But I'm going to sign a fee agreement before I get on, and you can represent.
I would encourage that. So I had a helicopter case. PHI, which is a taxi service, takes out folks from mainland out to the rigs. The rigs is going about 650 feet off the ground, which is, you don't need a flight plan. It's very safe. Bird strike knocks that big bird down in 16 seconds. And if you don't get your levers on your rotors right, it's like a rock. It's like a many-ton rock falling.
Yeah, there's no lift in a helicopter.
Yeah, there's no lift. So, and that's a perfectly good 2 pilots, good aircraft, struck by a Falcon, a little bigger than a chicken, smaller than a turkey. And it knocked that helicopter down, and 9 people died.
Ooh.
So, I'd rather not be in a helicopter. Small planes, I avoid them as well. It has to have a jet with 2 pilots. Maybe I'll get on one of those.
I'm going to buy you an ultralight for Christmas.
I'm the opposite. I'm okay with propeller planes because they're, jets are built for thrust. Propellers are built for
gliding down slowly.
Yeah, gliding down to my death instead of just, trying to do what Sully did.
I think you and I have some mutual friends that have their pilot's license that fly the ones with the propellers, and the mechanical failure is not normally what worries me about the folks that you and I would fly with.
I don't fly with anyone that has not successfully crash landed. Because if they can successfully crash land once, pretty good chance they could do it again.
I don't fly with anybody that doesn't have at least 2 or 3 dependents under the age of 18.
That's good. Good advice.
You got another question?
Yeah, I just wanted to close, since we like to talk about verdicts. Benny, you just had a recent one in Mississippi. Can you just give us a quick overview on that one?
Yeah, Mississippi has interesting caps and interesting laws. When you go to another state, like all of us at some point have had the opportunity to go to another state, you got to learn their procedure, their laws, and then their judge, the judge. This judge went to Loyola and Vanderbilt Law School. So she is extremely smart, extremely prepared. She gave us a great trial. Picking a jury in a small town in Mississippi is quite a challenge, but we use all our techniques that we've learned in Texas, plus a local lawyer to help. And we were able to go 10 times what the offer was. Actually, it was almost $10 million verdict.
And this was on a wrongful death case?
a product liability wrongful death case.
And what was the product that failed?
It was a Genie boom lift. These Genies, they claim to be the largest in the world, one of the largest in the world. You've heard of scissor lifts or a boom lift, kind of similar, but it booms out. And it had a manufacturing defect that we clearly can prove. We went after the design defect and warning defect, and the jury gave us all three.
Really? Design and
Yes, manufacturing, design, and warning. So they were quite shocked by the verdict, but we're waiting to finalize the judgment.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that should probably do it, unless you guys have anything more.
I mean, we could keep going for like.
Well, I was going to say we could take a break, and if Benny wants to hang out and talk about some more cases or talk about some Houston stuff, you're welcome to stay. I don't know how busy you are this afternoon, but
yeah,
we'd like to take a quick break.
Yeah, let's close out this edition of The Dirty Verdict. Thanks for joining us. And if you like this, subscribe, download, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And it's brought to you, no sponsor, so it's brought to you by
The Puerto Rican Board of Trade and
Puerto Rican Soccer Hall of Fame.
Professional Sports Hall of Fame.
There we go.
Soccer Hall.
All right, thanks for joining us.